Travelers, as you pass through this way station deep below the surface, we invite you to experience the tales of our fringe citizens who have chosen to step from their paths to make this underground life their own. Buckle up, sit back, and tune in to the SubverCity Transmit.
Signori, what is that smell?
Query sent. Pregunta enviado.
If you're feeling faint, please don't inhale the paint.
Oh, that's right. I forgot we were doing reroute maintenance. No wonder the carrion crew was out earlier dragging things off into dark corners. I don't know about you guys, but I really dig all the juxtaposition of the gloss tech with the natural rock formations. And I guess I'm not the only one doing a little routine maintenance. Speaking of, does anyone out there have a suggestion for a good life management tool? The time gets away from me. I'm sure you can all understand that, being that most of you station residents are in a permanent time flux. I just need my space to be a little more spacious. I've actually given up on my little hovel being up to my normal standards, but the booth here is where I spend most of my waking hours, and I'll be damned if any of this light-activated white hyperglass gets scratched. Pristine, elegant, practically sterile. That's the way I like it. With the exception of the comfort wall where I keep my extra roomy couch and paste up all of my favorite cards and letters from, well, I guess you would call them fans. So lately I've been spread a little thin between work life, nightlife, and the afterlife, and it's been a while now and I haven't had a chance to really handle the little things and read the latest batch of cards, let alone pick my favorites and post them up. It's not that I don't care, it's really just a question of quantity. Anyway, if you've heard some banging around today, it was either me moving around some of this furniture in my Terra Retro sound collection, or it was the reroute maintenance that's been going on. Also, don't come a knockin' if my window is a foggin', if you know what I mean. It's, might just be me spritzing my moss garden, but you never know. It's story time. Today I thought I'd pick a story that was also about someone that needed a little help keeping things in order, in more ways than one. So, enjoy. Companion by Kyle Whitacre. What was the cause of expiration for the companion? Ruth winced. She always hated this part. Accidental Vesuvian flux leading to fever and death. Would you like to request a new companion at this time? Yes. Would you like to request the same model as the previous companion? Ruth paused at the StatCom's question. It was a slow day at the dusty trade outpost, so no one eyed her to hurry up at the lone comm terminal there. In truth, she had waited for a day like today to bring up the matter of the companion with her insurance. No. Do you have a particular model in mind you would like to request? No. The terminal paused for a second longer than its usual rushed cadence. Please describe any particular characteristics you would like in the companion. I want one that makes me feel special. I'm sorry, that request did not process correctly. What special characteristics did you require? I want her to feel for me, to make me feel special, to listen and understand me. Can there be models like that? Your current plan covers intelligence capacity to a Turing rating of 1800. Any higher will incur an out-of-pocket expense with a 30% reimbursement. That's fine. A cascade of young women filled Ruth's view. Ruth gestured her hand to raise the age to a more mature yet youthful perkiness, something a little younger than Ruth's 38 years. She found a brunette model with pretty eyes and a wizened smile. She selected it and finished up her business at the post. An assistant helped her to her mob vehicle with bags of fertilizer, and she sat on top as it plodded back to her farm along the broken road. Ruth spent the next week doing her usual routine of tending crops in the hot sun, making dinner for her and her dog Buckley, and reading after. Sometimes she fell asleep in her reading chair, but most times she made it up to her bed. Ruth was tending crops when the pale figure with curly brown hair came into view near her house. The woman wore a dress too long for the weather and a large hat which kept the sun off her lightly freckled face. She carried a small suitcase in either hand. Ruth switched the machines to auto-irrigation paths and did her best to dust herself off on the way to meet the stranger. "Might you be Ruth?" "Yes, ma'am." "You can call me Angeline, if you like." Ruth blushed and replied, "Please come in." Ruth picked up Angeline's suitcases and led her towards the front door of the house. As they walked, Buckley bounded over to greet them. "What kind of farm is this?" Angeline asked. "Potatoes and whatever's in season. All natural seeds from Earth, nothing rendered. Good market for it on the planet. Has a real taste. Are you hungry?" Ruth asked, remembering her manners, as she dropped the bags at the foot of the stairs. "I'll have to admit I'm a bit famished. It's been a bit of a journey for me. Not many of my model are requested this far out," Angeline replied. "Give me a bit to map out the last of the irrigation plots, and I'll cook us something nice. In the meantime, you can settle in." Angeline set about unpacking and storing away the few pieces of clothing and toiletries in her suitcases while Ruth finished the chores and fixed up a simple dinner. Peas, carrots, and some pan-fried potatoes with some fresh herbs Ruth had picked from the small personal garden a past companion had started outside the kitchen. As they ate, they made small talk. Angeline was much smarter and wittier than Ruth's previous companion models. Her smile warmed Ruth's heart in a way she hadn't felt in a long while. She seemed more attuned to her surroundings and more sure of her own self. As Ruth stood to clear the table, Angeline stopped her. "Please, allow me." Angeline's gentle grasp on Ruth's hand remained as she stood up and leaned in for a kiss. The two shared Ruth's bed that night. They lay naked in each other's arms until planet rise. Angeline was like a dream come true. She made Ruth feel special and needed. Their days together flew by in a haze of contentment. Angeline took care of the house and cooking. Buckley took to her immediately. For the first time in Ruth's life, she felt home. During the cooler evenings, Ruth and Angeline ate on the patio and sipped wine while the sun disappeared behind the home planet. "When's the last time you visited Kepler?" Angeline asked one evening. "I haven't been back since I arrived in the sector. We should visit after the next harvest. It would be a nice vacation." "Maybe," Ruth said quietly. Angeline looked over to Ruth's distant stare and put her hand on Ruth's. "Well, we don't have to," Angeline replied softly. "This here's my own little slice of the universe. I've felt lost everywhere but here. Never really thought of leaving it. Maybe I should. I've been holed up here for too long. It could be a nice change, and home will be here when we get back. But it doesn't matter where we are. This little slice of the universe is just perfect." "I feel safe here. It reminds me of home," Ruth said longingly. "Really? What's your favorite memory of home?" "When I was little, some fireflies made it through quarantine and spread like real wildfire through our zone. At night you could see them dancing slowly for miles in the moonlight. Running through them felt like you were flying through heaven with tiny angels. They finally got rid of them after a few years, but I'll never forget them." "That's a beautiful story." She laid her head on Ruth's chest. Ruth brushed her fingers through Angeline's soft hair, smelling the earth and lavender in her locks. Ruth had trouble sleeping that night. Angeline woke up to find her in her study reading an old book. "Everything okay, hon?" Angeline asked. "Just thinking too much. Thought some reading might help." "I'm sorry if I upset you." "It's not your fault," Ruth said. "Just thinking of home." Ruth gestured at the bookshelf Angeline was standing next to. "You see all those books? My father sent me all those. I used to love reading his books when I was little. They're all from Earth. He sends me one for my birthday, for a holiday, sometimes just random. No notes, no questions, no pictures or vid decks, just books. I guess when they stop arriving, he'll have passed on." Angeline pulled a book from the shelf, the title Little Women barely legible on the cover. She opened it to see a small folder glued to the inside with the faded stamp, property of Kansas City Public Library. "Do you ever write back?" Angeline asked. "I'd have nothing to say. Life here is pretty plain. He knew how to find me here, so he knows I make an honest living for myself." Ruth responded. "You think he wouldn't want to see you? Or hear from you?" "I'm sure by now he's got plenty of grandchildren to keep him busy. I'd just be in the way. I'm the embarrassment they need to forget." Angeline closed the book and moved to comfort Ruth. "If he felt you were an embarrassment, why would he send you all these?" "We were Brotherhood Covenant missionaries," Ruth said. 5 generations on Ganymede, living natural lives, making and eating real food, following our traditional values from Earth. He may love me as his daughter, but as long as I'm not with a man, I wouldn't be welcome there. Every single book in this room shows he wants to be a part of your life. Part of me really hates them. If they had chosen my genes like every other parent, I'd be a perfect daughter. Ironically, my life is a sin because they followed their faith and had me naturally." Ruth looked up at Angeline and smiled. "I haven't done too bad for myself. I made a home and I'm happy. You're here for me. Not much more I could ask for." Angeline kissed Ruth and touched her hand. "Come to bed soon, love." Over the next few weeks, Ruth's harvest came in nicely, and she secretly set aside some money to take her and Angeline to Kepler for vacation. She didn't know why a companion would suggest such a thing, but Angeline was right about most things, so Ruth had made it a habit to trust in her. All in all, it took small worries off Ruth's mind and gave her some much-needed peace. During the late afternoons, Angeline had taken to sitting in the shade of the peach trees on the hill. With a small basket of fruit at her side, she'd watch the sun glow golden over the farm. Buckley would usually join her, and Ruth would take breaks with them to rest in the shade. On one such afternoon, Ruth was tending a new crop of sprouting potatoes when she heard a cry off in the distance and Buckley barking. She glanced up the hill and saw Angeline holding her left arm in her hand and writhing around. Ruth ran to her to see a thread of undulating shiny silver wrapping around the torn flesh of Angeline's wrist as the oval head bore into the cephalic vein, causing a rush of blood. Already white and red lines were traveling up Angeline's arm. With her remaining strength, Angeline held out her arm. Ruth pulled out her pocket knife and sliced off the silverworm near its head. She dislodged the rest of it from Angeline's arm and sucked at the wound, attempting to remove the poison. But Ruth knew it was hopeless. Companions didn't have strong antibodies. They didn't need them because they were meant to be replaced. Ruth's hands were shaking as she tied a tourniquet around Angeline's arm just above the elbow. Knowing it was useless, she pulled her into her lap and held Angeline as her breathing grew shallower and her skin colder. It really hurts," Angeline whispered. "I know, honey. I'm here." "I'm so sorry," Angeline said. "It's not your fault. I'm here for you," Ruth repeated, not knowing what else to say as Angeline's body started to convulse. "Just hold on. It'll be over soon." The tremors softened and Angeline's body slowly relaxed. Ruth buried her tears on Angeline's cheek as she whispered in her ear, "I love you so much." Angeline's hair still smelled of earth and lavender when her body went limp in Ruth's embrace. And Ruth cried heavily. Companion bodies were set for rapid decay, and for that reason Ruth usually buried them near her herb garden. But she buried Angeline in the shade of that peach tree with a crude wooden cross to mark the site. Ruth waited for a slow day at the dusty trade outpost to visit the StatCom. What was the cause of expiration for the companion? Accidental silverworm bite. Would you like to request a new companion at this time? Yes. Would you like to request the same model as the previous companion? Ruth paused at the StatCom's question. Yes. Last backup of companion cognition was 6 weeks, 2 days, and 19 hours ago, 2 weeks before approximate time of death. Would you like your companion restored with this memory and personality? Ruth paused before answering. Yes, but I don't want her delivered to my homestead. Have her delivered to my origin zone on Kepler. Charge my credit for all expenses. Request received. Is there anything else I can assist you with? Yes. Leave her a message. Tell her... Ruth paused, swallowing hard. Tell her to wait for me. Tell her I'll be there soon. Request received. Ruth packed up her supplies and headed home. Buckley greeted her and they headed inside together. She cooked and ate a nice meal of chicken and dumplings, then read by candlelight. She fell asleep in her chair with the book still open, dreaming of a little girl running through fireflies in the moonlight whose locks smelled of earth and lavender.
Wouldn't it be great if we could order up our perfect companions and then restore them to the latest acceptable backup if something terrible should occur? But who's to say someone wouldn't just use a companion for devious desires and then knock them off? I suppose the insurance company behind the StatCom would have to be the regulator of companion usage on those outer settlement regions orbiting Jupiter. And whoa, silverworms, you hate them, right? I hate them myself. Ah. Okay, that might have been in poor taste. Well, I think I'm going to start listing out the attributes of my perfect female, and then I'll see if I can persuade Signori to hack into that settlement insurance system. Truth be told, I already have a locked drawer full of pictures to reference. I wonder if they'd be able to sample DNA from hair strands to match a particular body type and demeanor. Getting that companion here should be the easy part. Obviously, Angeline used the SubverCity systems to get Ruth, and all I need to do is a little rerouting of space-time. Easy peasy considering the reroute maintenance going on. I promise I'll tell you if this succeeds. Hold your breath until my next transmission, kiddos. Don't worry, the air down here permeates your face. Toodles!
This episode's story, Companion, was written by Kyle Whitacre specifically for this audio podcast. Other featured voices in this episode include Kristen Roybal, Jose Perez, Russell Lichter, and our intro was read by our Scottish female voiceover artist, CrownJules. To contact us or submit stories, please visit our website at SubverCityTransmit.com. This episode was written by Erin B. Lillis. SubverCity Transmit is a Krockett and Greyvyn production.